Welcome to Freedom Unveiled, the podcast where we explore the fundamental freedoms that shape our lives. I'm your host, Orina Ontiri, and today we are diving into a critical topic, the challenges to our basic freedoms in Kenya. The challenges to our basic freedoms in Kenya. From government overreach to digital surveillance, our freedoms are under threat in very many ways. So in today's episode, we are talking about 4th of July when the Americans are celebrating their independence, and therefore I chose that in today's episode, we explore these challenges with specific examples and even discuss what we can do to protect our rights. Let's start by understanding what these threats look like. Number one, let me talk about government overreach. Government overreach is one of the most visible threats to freedoms in Kenya. This often involves the suppression of dissent, control of the media, and the restrictions on personal freedoms. Let's take a closer look at some specific examples here. In recent years, there have been several instances where the Kenyan government has cracked down on protesters, protest and opposition. If we take, for example, in 2017 elections, protests erupted over alleged electoral irregularities. The government's response included heavy-handed police tactics, resulting in numerous injuries and deaths. When we are looking at the recent Gen Z, millennials, and their supporters, when they were protesting, we saw the government's response, which included heavy-handed police tactics, resulting in numerous injuries and even deaths. And the government's response, this separation of peaceful assembly is a significant threat to democratic freedoms. When we look at media freedom in Kenya, it has also come under threat. Independent journalists and media houses, they often face intimidation and harassment. For instance, we saw the major shutdown of major TV stations. Let's remember in 2018, and recently we saw KTN being threatened for covering the riots, for the protests. And even in 2018, when we remember the covering of the mock swearing in of opposition leader Raila Odinga, which highlighted the lengths to which the government will go to control the narrative. So this is one of the things I call government overreach. Number two, I'm talking about digital surveillance. Another significant threat to digital is what we call digital surveillance. The collection of vast amounts of data on individuals, often without their knowledge or without their consent. It's a growing concern not only in Kenya but all over the world. The government of Kenya has implemented several surveillance initiatives under the guise of enhancing security. For example, we see the installation of CCTV cameras across major cities, and the push of remember, we had the biometric registration of citizens under Huduma Number initiative, which raised significant privacy concerns. And recently, you remember the company that there was an uproar, and one of the company on biometrics had to retract, and due to uproar from the citizens. Therefore, there is fear that this data could be misused to monitor and even control the citizens. If I remember, in 2019, the Data Protection Act was passed to regulate the processing of personal data. However, concerns still remain about its enforcement and the potential for abuse by government agencies. So to protect our privacy, individuals can take steps like using user encryption when you open WhatsApp, it tells you that now this message is being encrypted. That means it's a level of protection, privacy protection that has been put that if I communicate, if I talk with you, I'm the only one who will be able to access that information. Also, another thing is being mindful of the information that they share online and supporting organizations that they advocate for digital rights. It's also crucial to push for effective implementation and the enforcement of privacy laws and regulations. I want to remind you that recently the members of parliament were uneasy because a lot of their numbers were leaked online and people were able to send them text messages. However, I have a different view on contacting your member of parliament because he's your representative, and that's a public office. They should be able to communicate and commune with their constituents. And therefore, but of more importance is that it is crucial to push for effective implementation and the enforcement of privacy laws and the regulations. You see, something like an ID is something that we call private information. But to the extent that somebody can post your ID online, your number, even your vehicle, the number plate, that infringes basic freedoms to privacy, because now people will be able, actually anybody now is like people who come across that information are aware that who this individual is. Actually, let me say that you are exposed. The last thing I want to talk about in this episode is that we have what we call public apathy. One of the less obvious but equally dangerous threats is what we call public apathy. When people become indifferent or disengaged, it is easier for governments and corporations to erode freedoms without pushback. So when we see public apathy, this weakens the democratic processes. Let's say, for example, in our country, Kenya, voter apathy has been a significant issue. I know we are in the midst of a crisis whereby we really don't know what the future holds for us due to the recent protests and the way the government has behaved, the government has reacted. We may not have much hope on what is going to happen next. And therefore, when we talk about public apathy, people become indifferent and people become disengaged. People don't want to participate in anything that is being pushed forward. So it is easier now for government and the corporations to erode these freedoms without any pushback, because people say, what does it concern me? And that's where we are right now. But public apathy, as I've said earlier, it weakens democratic processes. In Kenya, we have what we call voter apathy, which has been a very significant issue, particularly among the youth. We have a low voter turnout in elections, which at times leads to election of leaders who do not prioritize the protection of these freedoms. If we look at, let me specifically talk about 2017 and even some parts of 2022 elections, where many Kenyans felt disillusioned. They just felt disillusioned with the political processes. And this led to lower participation rates where people boycotted. Remember, even the second election was boycotted due to the leadership from the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and his group. And even so, we have the numbers of the people who voted versus the people who did not participate in the voting exercise. And therefore, when we look at this, many Kenyans feel like they have an illusion that they do not want to participate in the political process. But when something bites us, then now we stand up for accountability and such measures. But let me say that when we see such things happen, that's why people don't become accountable. When we have education and engagement, these are a key combating public apathy. They are very key to combating this public apathy. So if people have education, like now, the majority of Kenyans are now educated, though the majority as well are out of the job market. When we have engagement, like now we have seen what Twitter, that's X Spaces, can do. One of the largest forums that was held recently in X Spaces by Gen Z and the supporters, I think it brought us to realization that engagement is needed. Even I understand that the president has as well organized to have another engagement on 5th on X Spaces, a space that was, let me say, ignored for some time by our people. But though other generations, other countries have been embracing the X Spaces, and we have been utilizing them elsewhere, but we have seen how engagement can become a key combating public apathy aspect. Let me say that people need to understand the importance of their participation in democracy. I want to repeat that people need to understand the importance of their participation in democracy. Community initiatives, we have educational programs, we have, and even transparent governance. This can help reignite public interest and involvement. You have seen the uproar among the, let me not call them subjects, but the fellow countrymen from all over the country. People, there's an outcry that we need to be careful on how we govern, on how we represent our people. And this has ignited public interest, and people are involved. There's a lot of involvement now. You can see even Kenyans in diaspora outside the Kenyan borders are standing in solidarity with the Gen Zs. Their parents, the millennials, are also standing with the Gen Zs. And people of the like-minded, like in Dallas recently, we covered an event where former presidential candidate Wajakoya also participated. We have seen the likes from Canada, we have seen the likes from the United Kingdom, whereby people are standing in solidarity with their Kenyan counterparts to see what they can do to support this agenda. So there's public interest and involvement. So in conclusion, let me say that the challenges to our freedoms in Kenya are real, and they are multifaceted, but they are not insurmountable. That means the first step is awareness. After being aware, then what follows is action. Whether it is advocating for better policies, lean government, protecting our digital privacy, or simply staying informed or staying engaged. These are pertinent issues that we need to observe and see what we can do. And therefore, it's my plea that we continue engaging, we continue being involved, so that we can have the society that we need. At times, regimes come and go, and there is a regime that terrorizes its people. Let me use that word, that there's a regime that terrorizes its citizens. A government that eats its own people. And these governments can be kept in check by the citizens who have interests and who are engaged. And therefore, if you need a certain aspect to be done, or if you need change, you better be involved and start engaging, because that's how things are done. Thank you for joining me on this episode for today. But I want to say that if you found that this episode is insightful, please subscribe, rate, and even review our podcast. And don't forget to tune in next time as we discuss the future freedoms of what we can do to ensure that they are protected for generations to come. Until then, stay informed and stay free. I'm Maureen Ontini, and this is AGR News from Dallas, Fort Worth area.